Taylor, and I am lazy. Does anybody else want to be lazy in the room? God, dear, they're too lazy to even say they want to be lazy. Right, I'm going to talk about this. So this is me. So I like to give a balanced connection and offering to people. So this is what I do these days. I'm in my comfy chair. I like a comfy chair. I like to be lazy in my comfy chair. I'm a project manager. I've been a project manager for, near 30 years now. I know it's incredible. How much? So much experience in such a young, youthful body. How can that be? But 30 years in project management, and I've enjoyed most of that time. These days, though, I spend my time writing a series of books, and I'm most famous for writing a book called The Lazy Project Manager, which is one of the best-selling project management books ever. I'm also a speaker. I do training. I do workshops, etc., and I do some consulting as well. So there's maybe some reasons why you want to listen to me, kind of that background and that experience, but I like to be balanced. Here's some reasons why you shouldn't listen to me. It's all about balance in life, isn't it? This is not just true about me, this is true about you as well. Apparently, at around about 18, we peak sexually. 18, that's when we start going downhill. Now, don't worry, ladies in the front row, this presentation has nothing to do with sex or my sex drive. Problem solving, around 19, you start to deteriorate. Endurance goes at 22. Your memory goes around about 28. Your muscles die around about 30. Your relationships die around about 32. My wife confirms that. Your brain goes around 45. Now, this is not appropriate today, but I love it when I have an audience whose average age is over 28, because I talk absolute rubbish, but you completely forget what I say anyway. There's some reasons why you might not want to listen to me, but hopefully you will, because this is not just to do with project management, it's also to do with generally the way you work. But just for some insight, first of all, I like to understand my audience. How many of you are project managers or in project management work? Quite a few of you. And how many of you who put your hand up just then? How many of you go home at night to your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your partner, the person nearest and dearest to you, and they know what on earth it is you do when you go to work each day? Yeah, very few hands now. It's kind of a difficult thing. For those of you who are not project managers, here's a game you can play with project managers. It's very entertaining. You know the game where you have to answer the question very quickly? Yeah? Question, answer, quickly. Well, you do this. You go and find a project manager at a party, perhaps, and you ask the project manager 2 questions. And the first question is this: what are you? I'm a project manager. What do you do? I manage projects. I guarantee 50% at least of occasions, that's what you're going to get. I'm a project manager. I manage projects. What are you? I'm a postman. What do you do? I man the post. The trouble is, the next level of explanation about what it is to be a project manager can be extremely long. There are entire books written about what it is to be a project manager, and it can be quite boring sometimes. It kind of puts people off. So I always argue with project managers, they need, you know, the Americans have this elevator pitch, yeah, the short, sharp speech, something like that. I wrote an article based on people's contributions. It was Explain Project Management to an Alien, and I got some fascinating responses. Some long ones, some short ones. You know, there were some great ones in there. You can find the article on the web. Yeah, there was great ones about, you know, doing something that makes a difference with a bunch of interesting people. That's kind of like nice, but other ones were very, very long. I was fascinated. I got one response from someone who sent me a submission in Klingon. I didn't know that the people actually spoke Klingon, but then somebody sent me a translation, so then somebody else spoke Klingon, and actually the definition of being a project manager was quite sensible. There is a problem with being a project manager, is the fact that people can't recognize what you do, they don't understand what you do. And there's a thing at school, and I've no idea if you guys have this, but it's growing in the UK. It's bring a parent into school to talk about what you do at work. Do you have that? Yeah? You come across that? Well, it's very American. So it's bring a parent into school and talk about what it is you do at work. Now, I have never been invited into my children's schools. I have tried many times indeed. And I analysed this. I said, well, who's been invited into school? And I'll tell you who's been invited to school. One day they brought a nurse into school, and the nurse talked about cuts and bruises and washing your hands after going to the bathroom. That was okay. They had a policeman came into school, and the policeman talked about not talking to strangers and crossing the road safely. That was very popular. Who else did they have? They had a fireman. Fireman came into school. Most popular day of the year for mums to volunteer in school, that was. The fireman came into school and talked about smoke and not playing with matches and fire. And I suddenly realized something. I suddenly realized that all of these people have something in common. And the thing they have in common is they have a uniform. And that, I think, is what we need as project managers. Underpants, capital P, big cape. If you were a project manager, it would be great. You go into work tomorrow, and people go, look, there's a project manager. Everything's going to be okay now. But it is a challenge. It is a challenge. And this elevator pitch is challenging because, you know, the Americans have these enormous buildings, don't they? You can get a PowerPoint presentation out, serve tea and coffee. You can take people through a complete presentation, and you still haven't reached the ground floor. In the UK, you're lucky to get 4 or 5 floors high. But, okay, that's interesting to know that some of you are project managers. I guess the rest of you just want to learn to be lazy. This was the quote that really came in for me. I was working with a lot of people. I ran a project management office. I had 115 project managers. And I came across this quote because I spotted that half of the project managers were being reasonably successful and working fairly normal weeks, working hour weeks, 40, 50 hours. The other half will be no more successful but working 60, 70, 80 hours. And I saw this quote. This is by Robert Heinlein, the science fiction writer. Progress isn't made by early risers, it's made by lazy men trying to find easier ways to do something. It's about working smarter and not harder. And that really is the essence of what I call productive laziness. Working smarter, not harder. It's efficiency. And it doesn't matter whether you're a project manager or not. The principles apply. The 80-20 rule. Vilfredo Pareto. I mean, everybody's heard the 80-20 rule. Yeah, 20% delivers 80%. That's the basic rule. Based on the work of Vilfredo Pareto, an Italian economist, but who uncovered that 80% of the property in Italy was owned by only 20% of the population. And then Joseph Duran, the American management thinker, evolved this. And one of the outputs from that is what we know as the 80-20 rule. So basically, there are certain things where you put the effort in, you get far greater return than the other things. The trouble is, a lot of people have to-do lists. You know, we have all these things. I've got to do that, I've got to do that, I've got to do that. You go into work tomorrow, people invite you to meetings, the phone goes, emails come in, your to-do list grows and grows and grows. And the problem is, if you start at the top, you go into work the next day, you get a cup of coffee, you order the cabbages online, you book a meeting room, etc. You're not really making any real progress because you're missing out on the really important things. It's the 20% that delivers the 80% of return on investment that makes the most progress. And so therefore the important thing is to think about that to-do list and prioritize it. You know, what's the importance and what's the impact? That combination of importance and impact. Put those two things together and it brings the most important things up to the top of the list. And they're the ones you need to focus on. The problem is, in those things, those important things, you know, there's that one thing you've been putting off. You know, that difficult, awkward thing to do, procrastination, you know, oh, it's difficult, I don't want to do that, I'll move that to later. But it's an important thing you have to do. It's part of the 20% that you have to focus on to really make things move forward. One of the books I really love is a book by a guy called Brian Tracy. I don't know if anybody's read a Brian Tracy book. They're small, simple, fun. It's called Eat That Frog. Eat That Frog. It's based on a North American Indian saying that says, if you start the day by eating a frog, your day is going to get better. It's going to improve from that point. So Brian's taken that frog as an analogy for something nasty and awkward and difficult that we have to do. And he says, he's got some great tips. He says, if you've got something difficult to do, if you've got a frog to eat, don't stare at it too long because it does not get more appetizing. And he says, if you've got 2 difficult things to do, 2 frogs to eat the ugliest one first. So some great advice in there. And I did this presentation, I've done it around the world. And I suddenly found myself in the middle of Paris with 400 French people going, what is wrong with eating the frog? I do not know. So another tip, always think about your audience. So here we are, that's the science. The science of laziness is applying that thought the night before, on the way into work, the first 5 minutes at work. What is the 20% that's most important? The 20% that's going to give you the 80% return. Do that and then resort things, restructure things, reprioritize things. And keep doing that. I'm not saying you don't do everything eventually. I'm just saying do the most important things first. And then we come to the intelligence of laziness. This is another wonderful character in history, Helmuth Karl Bernhard Graf Moltke. Moltke was the field marshal of the Prussian army at the end of the 19th century. And he and his son did many things to restructure and reform the Prussian army into one of the most efficient military forces we've ever seen. But when it came to people, this is one of the things he did. He very simply said, broadly speaking, simply put, people are either not very smart or smart. Now, he didn't say not smart. He was a bit blunter about it. But I'm saying not smart. Not smart or smart. And they are either lazy or diligent, hardworking or lazy. Now, this is interesting because Moltke said, you know what? The people who are lazy and not the brightest, lazy and not very smart, let them be quiet. They might come up with a good idea one day. They are mostly harmless. He didn't have a problem with them. Now, between you and me, I'm thinking those people were nearer the front line when the Prussian army went into battle. Just put them at the front because they can be cannon fodder. They're disposable. He did have a problem with these. He said the not smart people and the diligent, not the brightest people, but hard-working, take them out. Take them out because they tend to keep organizations busy with really silly things. And I can always see it, and you're doing it now. Some of you in the audience are going, yes, I know that person. I'm sitting next to them right now. Moltke again, take them out. When you're the field marshal of the Prussian army at the end of the 19th century, very simple to take someone out, probably, and involved one bullet, perhaps. But I'm not suggesting you kill people on your project teams, all right? HR do not like that anymore. They have this whole thing about talent management and looking after people, so you have to find other ways of dealing with this. But these people can be distracting. They can be confusing. More interesting, I think, is this side. Moltke said, you know what? The people who are hardworking, busy people, and they are smart, deploy into a staff function. They will make sure all detail is thoughtfully addressed. But you know what? They are not your leaders. They are not the ones who are going to lead. He said it's the combination of being lazy and smart. They will know how to be successful through the most efficient deployment of resources. That combination of using your intelligence and applying that and finding the most efficient way. It's about productive laziness. It's about working smarter and not harder. So we've had the science of laziness. We've had the intelligence of laziness. You all know what's coming next. A dinosaur, absolutely. No project management book should be complete without a dinosaur. This is Monty Python, and I hope people still remember Monty Python. If you don't know this one, this is a sketch where Miss Anne Elk is John Cleese, dressed up as a woman, being interviewed by Graham Chapman on a pretend TV program. And the joke is that Miss Anne Elk has this theory about brontosauruses, but won't say what it is. She does everything to not say what it is. Eventually, Graham forces her to come out with her theory, and her theory is that all brontosauruses are thin at one end, they are much, much thicker in the middle, and they're thin again at the far end. And the problem I see in life a lot is that people see projects this way. They see projects like that, thin at one end, much, much bigger in the middle, and thin again at the far end. And I disagree with that. The theory by the lazy project manager is completely opposite. I think projects are thick at the front end. They are thin in the middle from a productive, lazy project manager's point of view, and thick again at the far end. And let me explain why I believe that. These are the chapters of the book. The book is popular, and I think it's popular because, one, it's short, two, it's funny. I'm told it's funny anyway. And three, at the end of every chapter, there's a story where I got something completely wrong, and there's a very honest case study about how I completely screwed things up but learned a very important lesson. Now, not many project management books are like that. Many project management books you read are very serious, and they present you with a world of perfection where nothing has ever gone wrong. I'm not saying they're lying, but they're not right. The point about this is, so this starts off with the head of the game. This is the point in time when a project is given to a project manager and they start the whole process. It's all about the way you behave, the way you manage when you kick off a project from the beginning. Managing a sponsor is, the project sponsor is the second most important person on the project, and it's a matter of having a very good relationship in between the project manager and the project sponsor. Managing the creep is all about scope control, discipline. Whatever approach you're taking to your project methodology, there's still some sort of management and control that is required. And the fourth area is communication, because project managers spend 70, 80, 90% of their time communicating in some form or other. And that's a great place to become far more effective. I did some research on the area of communication in projects. It was really interesting that what you see is at the beginning of a project, there's someone spends a lot of time deciding how you're going to communicate on a project. You might have come across a communications plan, for example, defining how everybody's going to talk to everybody, how everything's going to be updated, all the reporting, etc. And then what happens is that's never touched or looked at again. And the project could be 3 or 6 months old, and nobody's ever gone back to that or updated it, and yet the project team have grown, new people have come on board. It's very difficult. The front end of the project is an important time when project managers need to work hard and do a lot of work, a lot of foundational work. That's why it's the thick front end. But the middle part, this is where the project, it's all about the project team now. It's about the project team being effective and working well together. I mean, all in a fun day's work. I find, the right level of fun and humor in a project is really important. For those of you who aren't project managers, did you know that project managers do have a sense of fun and humor? Did you know that? They do. They do. They do some good things. I've even written a book about it called The Project Manager Who Smiled. I worked on one particular project, and it was a really tough project. And so I decided to take a break at lunchtime. And at lunchtime, I took my systems engineer and my DBA, and we went out for a walk along the beach, as you do. Yeah? We're having a lovely time walking along the beach. The sun is shining. And suddenly we see in the sand there's something shining. And the systems engineer bends down and picks it up. And guess what? It's a lamp. And the systems engineer rubs the lamp, and guess what? A genie comes out of the lamp. It's a true story. And the genie said, I give you 3 wishes. Oh, hang on, there's 3 of you. You can have 1 wish each. Oh, okay. Who's first? Oh, I am, says the systems engineer. Me. I found the lamp first. I'm going first. What do you want? What is your wish, said the genie. Oh, I'd like a Ferrari. I'd like a large house in South America. I want unlimited amounts of beer. I want beautiful women, and I just want to have a wonderful, wonderful life partying. That's easy, said the genie. And the systems engineer is gone. He turns to the last 2 of us and said, who's next? And the DBA said, oh, I'm next. That sounds great. I am next. He said, okay, what do you want? And the DBA said, oh, I'd like a house in San Moritz. I'd like beautiful dresses and jewelry. It was a woman. I'd like champagne. I'd like beautiful men to look after my every need. I want an unlimited amount of shoes. And the genie said, well, that's easy as well. And the DBA was gone. And he turned to me, the project manager, and he said, what is your 1 wish? And you know what? I try and do the very best I can on projects. I'm a very good project manager. And I try and think about the project itself. And after a while I said, okay, can I have those 2 back at their desk at 2 o'clock, please? Put the right level of fun into anything you do, and it can be enormously beneficial. It can be very, very positive. Breathing normally, I'll come back to, if you bear with me on that one. A lot of love in the room is just a reminder that projects are about people, and therefore don't forget that people component, that element. Engage the people, work with the people, listen to the people, and make sure you can support them in every way you can. And then the lights are on, but no one's home. This is all about having the right focus on prioritizing. And sometimes you work as a team, and sometimes you work on your own, having that exclusivity so you can focus. Maybe you've got a really ugly frog to eat, something difficult to do. You need to focus, you need to concentrate, you need to get on with it. In which case, now's the time to go and find a room somewhere else to work quietly, but also allow your project team the same responsibility. Now, I said I'd come back to breathing normally. Now, I do a lot of traveling. I did an awful lot of traveling yesterday with the delights of a 6-hour delay on my flight out here. Hopefully it won't be the same on the way back. But when I do a lot of flying, I like it when it's been a good flight. Okay, a good flight. Let me explain to you what a good flight is. First of all, it's on time. That's a good flight. Secondly, my luggage is on board in the overhead locker. I've learned that the hard way. Secondly, I'm not sitting in the middle seat. And I'm not sitting in the middle seat between 2 sumo wrestlers with body odor. And they offer free drinks. Not so easy to find these days. If all of that happens, and hopefully I've done a good presentation, I've done a good workshop, I've worked hard, I earn the rest, I sit back in my seat on the plane, I do my seatbelt up, and I relax. I go off into a little sleep. And every single time I am woken by someone who says something like this: in the event of an emergency, an oxygen mask will drop from the panel above, etc., etc., etc. Breathe normally. I used to think they were the most 2 stupid words you could put together on a plane. 37,000 feet, oxygen masks have come down, gravity, Earth very large, very round, very hard. The combination of all that, I used to think, breathe normally. Why on earth do they tell you to breathe normally on a plane? And actually, there are reasons. They tell you to breathe normally because they want you to stay as calm as possible. If you stay as calm as possible, you are more likely to listen to instructions and follow those instructions. If you follow those instructions, you are more likely to survive. That's the general theory. What they don't want is people running around like headless chickens, screaming and panicking. That isn't going to help. So breathing normally on a project is important because you have to stay calm, particularly if you're a project manager. A lot of this is down to planning. It's anticipating all the time. This is part of the project manager's job, anticipating what could possibly go wrong and preparing some contingency plans accordingly. Breathing normally at every possible situation. Filtering. You know, just because someone's making a lot of noise about something does not mean necessarily there's a problem. There are people in life who make a lot of noise very easily. So filter, is this a problem? Yes. If it's a problem, delegate it. Find the right person to sort the problem out, to work with them. And finally, prioritize. What's the most important thing you should be doing at any given time? Which brings us to the end of the project. This is a very fast project, I know, but we're at the end of the project already. And I've called this the missing link because that's the reality. This is missing in so many projects. Donald Rumsfeld said this one. You can look it up on YouTube if you want. It's very entertaining. He was trying to explain something, and he came out with this slightly confusing nonsense about knowing things and not knowing things, etc., etc. But it makes sense. If you see it in a Boston matrix, a 4-box, a quadrant, the point is at the end of a project, anybody will not have known everything that went on, and yet there are very important lessons. This is a great time to learn them. So put some effort into this point. There's a definition of insanity, which means doing the same thing you did in the past but expecting different results. And I see that on project after project after project. They don't learn. They do exactly the same as they did last time, and they're surprised it didn't work the second time either. It's an important process to go through and learn. And this is the thing I love. I mean, you can do this all the way through. You can do this in a very agile way in projects. But at the very least, do one at the end of a project is a retrospective. And a retrospective is a way of looking at the project in a very relaxed and calm way. Everything's, the project's finished. Maybe about a month later, you get people together in a room, flip charts, post-it notes, PowerPoint, no PowerPoint at all. It's all interactive discussions. And you explore, what worked well that you want to repeat, what didn't work well, etc. You uncover the real value, the lessons learned at the end of the project. One of my favorite tools in this is a thing called the emotional seismograph. Has anybody come across an emotional seismograph? This is a great tool. So imagine in the real terms you have a great big series of flip chart paper on the wall, you draw a great big timeline, and then another axis, positive or negative. In the timeline, you break it down. Project phases, dates, deliverables, milestones, whatever. So you make sense of where you are in that project. And then you get people to say how they felt. Probably the easiest way is to, let's say you were coming to Infoshare 2014. You came last year, it was great, you come this year, yeah? Your mood is very high. 2 days off from work, if nothing else. You're going to have a great time. There are some good speakers. You're having a really good time. You went out last night, you're feeling a little bit tired. Your mood is dropping on day 2, but you're still positive. It then comes to the afternoon session. The opening person, the C1 was really good, and now the lazy project manager is on stage, and you're thinking, what is he on about? He's talking about dinosaurs and Monty Python. He's talking about Italian economists. Your mood is dropping. You're very negative now. But he actually should be coming to the end of his time now. So your mood is rising. He's going to stop talking soon. Hopefully. It does look like he's coming to the end of the time. The organisers are waving at him saying, time up. Oh my Lord, he's just opened a second PowerPoint presentation with 168 slides. Your life is over. Now, that could be your emotional experience of this session. I hope it isn't. But it's not mine. Oh, look at this, I'm coming out to Gdansk, I'm going to meet a whole bunch of new people. This is a massive, exciting event. Meeting project managers and non-project managers. It's wonderful. They're all listening to everything I'm saying. They're all going to be lazy project managers. They might even buy a copy of the book afterwards. It's fantastic. And now I've run out of time and I have to stop speaking and I'm quite depressed. This is a brilliant exercise to do because you look at the gaps. Once you find those gaps, you uncover why. Why was I so positive and you were so negative? How can we improve things next time around? The retrospectives, the lessons learned, the back end of the project is enormously valuable time. And I am very sad that it's often the missing link because we're so busy, we've moved on to the next project already. The book itself, you can, I apply everything I talk about. The book is only 30,000 words long, but you can cheat. You don't even have to read the whole book. You get to chapter 4 and you can skip all the way to the end, and there's a summarized version, just a few pages. You know, how kind is that? I've applied the 80-20 rule to the book. There is, in fact, an even shorter section. The 80-20 rule twice is called the 64-4 rule. So it's actually only on 2 pages. The book is summarized on 2 pages. Those 2 pages are available, but they are the same price as the book. Finally, that's all of my information, all of my contacts, etc. I am on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect to lots of people on LinkedIn. I just want to tell you one last story before I wrap up. Because, as you know, I like to go out for walks at lunchtime during my projects. And recently, I went for a walk along that same beach. And you're not going to believe this. You know, finding a lamp the first time was fantastic, luckily, wasn't it? I found another lamp. And I was on my own this time. But I picked the lamp up, and it was the same lamp. And I rubbed it, and a genie came out. And he goes, "Oh, you again." He said, "Okay, well, I'm only going to give you one wish. What is that one wish?" I said, "Well, okay. Look, I'll tell you what, I'm doing a huge amount of work in America. And I have to keep flying from the UK to America. And flying is an absolute pain. You get up early, you drive to the airport, you check in, you park your car, you go through security, you have to take everything out of your bag these days. There's practically everything out rather than that, going through security. You have to sit in the lounge for hours on end. Sometimes your flight isn't on time. The flight's okay. Watch a film, have a few drinks, not bad. And then you do the whole thing in reverse when you get to the other end. Back through border control. I said, "It's just a pain." And he said, "Okay, so what would you want?" I said, "Could you build me a road bridge between the UK and America?" He said, "A road bridge between the UK and America?" Wow, that's a pretty big ask, because I am a very powerful genie, but a road bridge? Is there nothing else you'd like? I said, "Okay. How about the next time I start a project, on day 1, everyone makes up their mind exactly what they want, and never change their mind throughout the entire life cycle of the project." And the genie said, "How many lanes do you want on that road bridge?" Thank you very much. I've been the lazy project manager.
Peter, thank you very much. I think we can afford one question. Is there any question to Peter? Okay, there's one question.
Hello, I've got one question. I've been on your presentation 2 or 3 years ago in Sopot, in fact, in Sheraton, and I was trying to get all the things you were talking about to life with projects, but sometimes you said that it's very important to delegate. That's why you can become lazy, in fact.
Yes.
And anyway, sometimes it's a situation that you realize that people you're working with sometimes aren't the best in some things, and you think you will do it better. I know it's obvious that you probably should delegate, but you know them well, and you know that if you're trying to be the best with the project, sometimes you will try to do it better because the project is the most important to you. And the question is how to stay lazy and don't become exhausted anyway, and do the project the best you can.
Well, the brutal answer is get rid of that resource if you possibly can, but the reality is you often can't. So, delegation is the right thing. If you're delegating and that person is not performing or doesn't have the right skills, can you put them with someone else to support them? But sometimes you do have to get involved yourself. The biggest thing I see in project managers is they are constantly at the detail level. That's the biggest problem. It is a matter of raising yourself to a higher level and being as reasonably objective as possible. The problem is that if you get down and you are working 100% busy, 100% capacity, and your project has a problem, what are you going to do? You've got no bandwidth to go and deal with it. You have to stop doing something. So I totally appreciate the situation, and sometimes it's important to invest a little bit of your time to support that person, or perhaps finding someone else on the project team to help them out. But just always remember, don't get yourself buried at that level, because that way you're going to have some problems. Okay?
If you have any more questions, you can catch up Peter in the hall. Peter, thank you very much.
Thank you.